Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, people, wherever in whichever part of the world you are. And this is a wonderful session, a start of a new year. And in this new year, we are getting started with one of the brightest mind that we could actually get. Yes, we have got Jacopo Tani. He's one of the brightest guys, and I'm going to tell you about his background very soon. So we are going to talk about that how we can empower institutions and nurture talent using AI and robotics. So that is why we have gotten one of the phenomenal personalities, Dr. Jacopo Tani. And Dr. Jacopo is a senior researcher scientist at ETH Zurich. He is co-founder of Ducky Town, a wonderful company which is into AI and robotics. And let me also tell you that he is multiple brilliant. Why I'm saying multiple brilliant is like he has done his postdoc from MIT, which itself is a level of brilliance. And he did projects which were funded by NASA and also, Harvard Medical. So, he is a factory of, bringing in the brilliance thing. And if I, for the people who are from the Indian origin or across the globe to make it, to me as in person, I feel like, Jacopo is somebody who could be in future somebody like, Som Wangchuk, the person who is changing the earth. I feel that probably Jacopo is one of those kind of minds who can probably really change the way we work or way we think. So, Jacopo, welcome to the call. How are you doing?
Thank you very much for the super flattering introduction, Shreeram. I'm doing well. How about you?
Uh, I'm good. I'm good, and things are fine with me. And I was just lost for a second that hey, that yeah, I'm going to talk to a person who understands probably robotics much better than me and everything. So I have to be careful by talking to you. So while doing all those things, you worked for a project which was funded by NASA. I understand you are from aerospace and aeronautical engineering, and wanted to understand, was that not enough kick for you? Why did you felt of coming into education?
Well, Shreeram, it's not about to not being enough of a kick. The thing is, when I was younger, I really was moved by this idea of trying to do something during my life to bring people together, to get communities, not to get closer, to somehow help, unify mankind. And if you think about it, historically speaking, the most significant aggregation factors are either common enemies or natural disasters. And so young me was thinking, hey, but if we go to space now, space and the astronomy, it's something that it's an atavic pulsion in all societies across all the world. It's the first thing when man woke up, you see the sun moving. What's going out there? Why is it moving? What are these shiny things in the star? Are there other people in the stars? Right. So I was thinking, well, look, if we find the aliens in space, well, that's if you think it can be perceived at the same time as both a natural disaster, if you want, and a common enemy. So, boom, you get the two factors together. And one moment, mankind comes together, stops worrying about bickering about all the internal troubles and focuses on some complicated, harsh objective. So that was my original motivation to get into aerospace engineering, even because space is really a terrible place. It's dark, it's cold, it's huge, it's very it's a tough engineering challenge to get something to go to space, get people to go to space. And so I wanted to understand the technical detail of all of this now in order to actually comprehend what the challenges were. And so I did my aerospace, my space engineering. And at some point, I realized that some of the biggest challenges for going in space are not much related to the technology, because we have really some smart people out there working on all sorts of cool things that we managed to do. But there's lots of challenges related to, I would say, societal, political challenges. Space is they say it's a dual technologies. No, so if you send a camera on a satellite and you put it in orbit around space, that camera can be used to give advanced warning on hurricanes, or it can be used to spy your enemy. No, so it's both military and not. It's always a sensitive matter. So there's lots of complications that go beyond the engineering part. And so I realized that really to play the longer game, to get this to work, What you need is to better education system. You need more informed citizens. You need more sensible decision makers. You need more talents, more competent professionals. And so I got into to education, and and the objective even when we created Ducky Town was really to get quality education in the fields of robotics and AI, because that's where my competence lies, and to as many people as possible. Something that is accessible, something that is disruptive. It's engaging, fun, something that actually drives people to want to educate themselves and actually learn things that are useful
Yeah. So
in
no,
their
actually,
lives.
yeah. So that is actually a very thoughtful way that you really told that how people on Earth could unite all together, coming in for a cause that made you go there, and then the bigger challenge, the purpose of empowering not only the institutions but also empowering the individuals to think about what power robotics and other has. That's phenomenal. So I was just thinking about with your caliber, the kind of things, the projects that you have done, uh, with plenty of them, NASA and whatnot. So you could have thought of any other thing, but why did you pick up the autonomous vehicles?
Mhm. Well, like I think it was a smooth transition when you proceed in your studies, in your career. There's many let's say stimuli that you get from various sources, professors, teachers, readings, talks. At some point, I don't know, in my career, I discovered control systems. So control systems is this branch of engineering that is really beautiful. I mean, it struck me so much because it really has this very simple formalism, kind of like high school level math, but at the same time, such a disruptive power, like practical power to change things around us. Sometimes people call it the secret technology. It's a secret because it's all over the place, but nobody knows about it, right? So I discovered it when I saw it, of course, in the control of satellites, in the control of rockets and things like this. But really, it's in the oven, it's in the shower, it's in power grids, it's in financial investment algorithms, it's in biological systems. It's pretty much everywhere. We have a dynamical system. So there's something that has an input and an output that change in time. And we the users, we the designers, want to make the system behave in a way that is what we want it to do and not how it would naturally behave. So
Absolutely.
it's this really beautiful thing that, of course, finds its application in getting autonomous behavior out of machines, basically. Now you get systems to work automatically in order to achieve an objective. It's a really beautiful thing. And when I was doing my PhD studies, which were in aeronautical engineering, but more in control systems, I had lots of experience with, I worked a lot with the image-based control. So all the aspect of, let's say, perception coming from images. And this topic of perception is one of the, let's say, big challenges in autonomous vehicles and self-driving cars. So these two things came together, the control systems and the perception expertise. And then I was lucky enough to meet some great mentors and great minds with who I still work today. And that was as well a factor that contributed in getting me to work in autonomous vehicles.
Yeah. So you really made me think that like we say that there is a supernatural power which is omnipresent. Control systems are omnipresent, and like you need a guiding path for certain things, you require guiding path for a way autonomous vehicle, and that kept you challenging to pick it up
Mhm.
something. Yeah, that phenomenal. So I understand that you run this beautiful company, and people would like to know that what exactly is Ducky Town. What is, can you please tell the people that what exactly is Ducky Town, and
Mhm.
something about your
So
company?
Town today is a robotics and AI education, research, and outreach ecosystem that focuses on delivering learning experiences that are state of the art, that are real, that are engaging and are fun. Okay, and really, Ducky Town was born from this intersection between the education and the self-driving cars, if you want. We created the self-driving car back in 2016. It was a big team of people to create, to teach a course in self-driving cars for the master's students of MIT. And we wanted to do something that was different from the usual go at the blackboard, tell the story, and then make a test for people to see if they got it. So from scratch, together with the students, together with many professors, research staff, and other PhD students, we created this platform that today is used by nearly 100 universities around the world, as well as roughly 60 companies, or let's say research labs, either private or government-based, and hundreds of people. It has touched in many ways the life of thousands of alumni in the last years. So
yeah, I'm saying that that's wonderful. The way you have transformed, saying that that the Ducky Town has reached out to 100 university, close to 100 universities, and 60 plus institutions talking about it, and the network coming in together. That's phenomenal, and in terms of doing an autonomous education across the world. So that's really good. But I was it's really surprising, or really in a positive way, that that, hey, that in such a short span of time, 100 universities and using Ducky Town. And how was that part of the journey, getting in people?
mhm.
So how was that part of the journey?
So I think that first we have to, one says 100 to say the whole number now, but then whole numbers always sound fake, so it's like 96 universities. It's not yet on nearly 100. I think it was a great learning experience for us, and definitely I would answer your question very shortly with an exciting start. Okay, this is only the beginning. We have been inspired by this early momentum to double down our efforts and really push forward. What I do believe is that there were some early factors that contributed to this dissemination in the academic field. And definitely, as I was mentioning before, one of the main factors was this let's say, very particular ratio of staff to students in the first edition of the course. I think it was the only course ever that has twice as many professors as or
Wow.
instructors as the students, basically. And so many of this staff at MIT that was involved in the creation of the course were PhD students or postdocs. Now, and postdocs are particular positions. So it's like the name of the position even says it. It's post. It just describes what's the time frame. It doesn't describe what your job is. It's
Wow.
postdoc. It's after the doc, right? And so they're typically limited experience in time. And people, it is natural that after a few years they proceed with their career and they end up going around the world, because that's the nature of the academic profession. And so many of these people started migrating to universities around the world and bringing Ducky Town with them. So this contributed a lot to the early dissemination. And thanks to the fact that Ducky Town really, was designed to solve one critical problem for researchers and teachers and professors at university, which is that to bring together, lie at the intersection of the duties of research, teaching, and outreach. Mainly three things that a professor needs to do. And so Ducky Town was used. It was used to do teaching, to do research, and to do outreach. And this helped to disseminate the knowledge of the platform among students, helped create a lot of scientific publications, which of course had an indirect, let's say, effect of disseminating the platform among the academic community. And so this was definitely one of the early factors that contributed. The other one is that, of course, being Ducky Town, something that lies at the intersection of these three things, teaching, outreach, and research, there are many, let's say, activities that we started running in big conferences, like the Artificial Intelligence Driving Olympics, which is a competition for benchmarking the state of machine learning based algorithms to solve problems in non-trivial settings such as urban driving, autonomous urban driving. And we have been running workshops every biannually, so every 6 months, more or less, at the I would say, premier conferences of robotics and machine learning, respectively, the International Conference on Robotics and Automation, ICRA, or the Neural Information Processing Systems Conference, NeurIPS. And this has helped bring awareness, and we hope make these two communities intersect and talk together a little bit more. This was a very strong driver for the early success in the industrial, in the academic field, but I really do believe that it's just the beginning.
Wonderful. So I believe, because we spoke quite a lot of, like, the stuff which was, like, about the international bodies and talking about stuff, but that might be some audience available here who would really like to see if you can draw a couple of slides that you talked about, wherein if you could show them that, how the entire setup looks like, of Ducky Town, and
Absolutely.
what is it that is really going to the university.
Absolutely, absolutely. So let
You have,
me,
yeah, if you can share your screen.
absolutely. Can you see my screen?
Yeah, I can see it now.
So I think that the most tangible part of Ducky Town is of course, hardware ecosystem. So what do we get is an urban environment, a Ducky Town, as in the proper city, which is a modular system that can be very small, very big, made of, let's say, atoms. No? So you have 5 building blocks. You have the straight, you have the curve, you have the 3-way intersection, 4-way intersection, empty, and you can combine them in any way to get arbitrary topographies. So the idea is you can scale the complexity in the way that you prefer, that the user prefers. The city has the capability of adding a signal layer on top. So it could be traffic signs, it could be smart infrastructure. So like traffic lights or watchtowers. Imagine like you're putting a camera on top of every building. So the city itself has distributed capabilities to sense, to compute, and to act. Because, for example, it can change the order, I don't know, of the traffic light colors, right, at the whole system. So the city itself is a robot. It's a weird robot. It doesn't really move, but it satisfies the technical definition of a robot. In this urban environment, we get self-driving cars, the Ducky bots, these minimal autonomy platforms that do what self-driving cars do. They can drive around, coordinate with other robots. They can make sure they don't crash in intersections, respect or not the rules of the road, avoid Ducky pedestrians, talk to the city infrastructure, and so on. And we have a drone infrastructure as well. So the first most tangible part of Ducky Town that university or any user gets is the hardware. It's modular, it's distributed, it can be as complex as you want. But Ducky Town this is just the front-facing part of it. The most interesting component is all the learning experiences that can be built on top of this hardware. So by this, what we mean is we provide curricula. So let's say order the sets of learning modules, okay, which might include slides and operation manuals and documentation, so instructionals, exercises, or do-it-yourself kind of activities. All this information is publicly available. One can go online, just search for Ducky Town library and find these things. We provided the whole software architecture that can be deployed on either the robots, the city, or the Ducky Town simulated environment of all of this that we've talked about. So the simulation of the city, of the robots, and so on. And we provided the implementation, so the transformation of the theory that we talk about and we prepare and we offer into actual algorithms. And then the deployment of these algorithms either on the hardware or on the software. So we created the backend in such a way that it's very easy to, it doesn't really matter to the robot if it's operating in a real world or in a fantasy world, in a simulation world. Okay, so it's very easy for the user to focus on what is really important in learning, whether you're learning for research or you're learning as a student. Everybody's always learning. It doesn't really matter if at what level. You can focus on what's really important, that is, what happens if I change this piece or substitute this module with another module? And I'm thinking about maybe, the controller and the robot, or the perception block, or the planning block, or maybe a piece of the hardware. And how do things change? And what happens if I use some maybe data-driven solution, but I train it in a simulator and then I apply it in the real world? How does this aspect, how does it transfer? So there are lots of interesting activities that can be done at the research level and at the education level in any subdisciplines. Now, so DuckyTown can be used, of course, to learn autonomy, which is, let's say, the modern version of robotics. Okay, it's the really all the deployment of these software architectures to obtain behaviors of machines in non-trivial environments in order to solve some given task, right? But it can even be used to teach, for example, subdisciplines. Like, I don't know, maybe somebody is using it to teach computer vision, or just maybe planning, or just maybe control systems, or maybe networking, or maybe cybersecurity. I don't know. There's many aspects that the platform can be. You can hide all the part that is not relevant for the specific topic at hand, and still trust that it will work, and then focus on the part that is relevant instead for the particular application. It's important to say that the whole platform is open, in the sense that we don't have any black box. You can double click anywhere and end up changing, seeing how things work, and modifying them according to the need. What the magic that DuckyTown brings in is all the back end that is provides let's say a joyful user experience. Okay, it hides to some degree the nitty gritty details of robotics, the complexity of getting everything to all these parts of the software architecture to talk to each other in a way that is effective, let's say.
Wonderful. Actually, this is phenomenal from a perspective of, like, you have not only made technology accessible, you have made it simple, and also from the perspective of bringing in that soft look of duck, that that the automation is not dangerous, robotics is not dangerous, and it's something good that everybody can try their hands on. And furthermore, the transparency that you're talking about, the future world is about being ethical AI, how things are ethical. I don't see black boxes. So it's like, it is one single bullet which is giving you multiple kind of solutions, that it's ethical, it's transparent, it's easy, you should not shy away. Then the visionary part that I really liked about your product is, like, you're talking about, I see this being gelling to very well to smart cities. That when when a city wants to plan their smart cities and how things to work out, probably rather than going up and kicking off project or doing a paper pilot, they should do a Tucky Town pilot. That's very good. So really very, very futuristic. Probably I would just request you now to stop sharing screen so that people can see you in large and wider. So
Uh,
if you can just, yeah. So then, coming on that, so coming to the next question, entire quite a lot of people, the entrepreneurs across the world, they got some chills this year because of COVID. COVID really shook off their business this year. How did COVID impact your business? How was that?
So I think that we got lucky. I mean, I don't really know how to answer this question, because we don't have enough data to tell it went better or worse to our expectations, right? What I can say is that, of course, this terrible pandemic brought many educational universities around the world, and still today, to fundamentally close their on-site operations. And this was disruptive. I mean, even for our own courses at ETH Zurich, we couldn't let students access the rooms, and that was really, really, really a challenge. But we were lucky in the sense that we had been developing the DuckyTown infrastructure to allow for remote learning already way before COVID hit. So we basically have this system for which we can provide pretty much worldwide with one click the hardware part to anyone. So we can send the hardware to students at home, and they can build their little small DuckyTown city in the room or in the dorm or wherever they have a space. And we had been developing a little bit for the AI Driving Olympics, this competition I mentioned before, and for another let's say big project that we are running, this massive online open course, this MOOC of DuckyTown, that we will be starting next month, fundamentally, on the edX platform. It's going to be the world's first robot autonomy remote learning course where people can follow with a robot, so do hands-on remote learning. And we had to in order to do this, we have developed this backend infrastructure that allows people to interact with the evaluation, let's say, systems, even from home.
Wow.
So anybody can do their exercises, they can have them evaluated, see graded if you want, in either our cloud infrastructure and simulation or in our remote hardware facilities that can run solutions of other people in remote. So this means that you, Shreeram, are a student in the course. I tell you, hey, you have to do this exercise that involves maybe writing a piece of code for something that runs in the mind of the robot, okay? And so you can be at home, you have your robot, you have your city, you have your simulator of Ducky Town on your computer, along with the various other bits and pieces. You start developing your solution, you test it out in simulation, you see until it gets to working good enough, you take it and you try it on your robot, you iterate again on the solution until you get it to work in the real world, because there is a difference between the real world and an ideal world. And that's kind of one of the important parts of having a hands-on learning experience now, because you really gain the understanding of what's going on in the real world. What are the nuisances, they call them now, but more than nuisances, they're really problems. They can break down your solution. But then you can take your solution that you developed at home, you can ship it to our cloud infrastructure. We evaluate it in a bunch of different, let's say, random compliant Ducky Town urban environments. And then we can take it and download it on our robots in remote in a big fancy Ducky Town like the one you saw in the picture before, and actually get the city to localize. This means to track all the robots, their position and orientations and time as they go around, and see eventually how your solution performed according to some challenge, some tasks that you were asked to solve. So we have I think today more than 100 different challenges. So basically a challenge is a task. I tell you, look, get your robot to drive, just follow the lane, drive in the city without making any traffic infraction, right? That could be the simplest of challenge. Or now I can tell you, well, do the same thing, but avoid pedestrians. That is, of course, rubber duckies on the road. So you have to do obstacle detection, obstacle avoidance, planning. It's significantly more complex. Then we can tell you, hey, look, what about if the city has intersections, for example? Now, wow, immediately you have to create a finite state machine, and you have to get the robot to realize that at some point it needs to stop. At some point it needs to change its behavior. It needs to check out if there's other cars coming at the intersection, if there's a traffic light, or if there's, how does it know when it stops at an intersection, which direction it can go or not, okay? So we can create challenges of increasing complexity. And all of this can be evaluated and in remote, well developed locally, regardless whether you're in a university or you are at home. So from this perspective, I think Ducky Town was lucky, because we had created an infrastructure that allows today to teach a state-of-the-art robotics and AI class from home, basically.
Yeah, no, that's actually, as you gave that answer about the COVID stuff, and it was elaborated, but it gave you clear visions about the things. Like, first is like, you sensed that journey of COVID itself can be very long. And because of that, MOOCs were the option. Secondly, then in couriering or sending across a robot, so that, it's not like that you need to come to lab. The lab will come to you, so that you actually can create one thing and feel really how it takes. These are really steps that you have thought through well. And I guess that is why is that, even if God forbid the things extends, I guess the business is safe. You really did a wonderful job there. One more thing I would like to know, from this perspective of, like, you've been very futuristic in planning the product, planning the company, and all that stuff. What as advancements do you see in future in technology, and how do you see that things will transform in the world?
So I think that from an education standpoint, what technology can contribute to bring at disruptive level is this whole idea of transforming the learning process from something that is an open loop to something that is closed loop, okay? So what happens today in most educational institutions is that there is some person, an expert, a field expert, an instructor, a professor that comes in, has a syllabus, which is basically the truth that needs to be explained and to the students. Okay, so the, the, the information flow is one directional. The expert
Absolutely.
tells the truth to the learners, and the learners are assessed. There are some intended learning outcomes. So the teacher wants the students to learn something, and these intended learning outcomes, how much they're achieved, they are assessed maybe with an exam at the end of the year, or maybe with some exams in the middle. Okay, that's the state of the art. What really technology allows us to do now is to have a continuous assessment of the learning. So because we can gather lots of data, we can measure many outcomes. Okay, and so what does this allow us to do? It allows us to feed back the real time, if you want, effectiveness of the teaching activities of the instructor in order to see if the class or the learners are actually learning or not. And once we have this information, then the instructor can adapt its teaching activities and maybe adapt the curriculum that now no longer is a static thing, but it becomes dynamic in order to deliver a better service to the learners. This is definitely one very relatively low hanging fruit. Okay, so because we have the technology to gather this data and to synthesize it and to provide analytics that are meaningful to the instructor. The other maybe a little bit more long term, but definitely disruptive idea, I believe, is, in this closed loop thing that I described, there still is the instructor, which is kind of, I mean, of course, the strong point, but maybe even the weak point. No, why? Because the instructor can just ignore the feedback and then it breaks down, right? If the instructor doesn't want to do it, it's as simple as that. So one part is trying to replace the instructor, or let's say help the instructor augment its capabilities by somehow providing a digital mentor. Okay, so a algorithm, a set of a system that enables, based on all this information that comes in, together with the constraint of each individual, to deliver personalized, adaptive digital mentorship. Okay, so if you think about it, there's this thing about back in the day, people went to schools, went to universities, because that's where the knowledge was, right? There's this expert, there's a teacher, everybody gathers around the teacher because they need to hear the knowledge that otherwise they can't have access to. Times have changed. Today, knowledge is everywhere. It's on the internet. You can go online and pretty much with enough patience find anything you want. So what's the role of a school? What's the role of a university? It's that to provide mentorship, right? And if you want, mentorship is all about putting things in perspective, to provide an order, right? Don't just get lost in this huge amount of knowledge, but read this first, then that, then that, then that, a sequence of steps. So this can be automated. How can we provide, but to each individual, the best next step for you? Okay. So I think this is something that is very possible with advances in technology and the field of education.
That's actually wonderful. So I really could relate some things, and the thing was like, for example, when I was in school and we had a teacher and teaching us economics, and I really used to find it really hard. I don't know if was it because of the bias or whatever, but I used to hate that subject then. And then what happened is like, I actually left used to leave the complete part of economics and then give the exam with all social science, other things, history, geography, and whatnot. But when I did my MBA, we got a very, very brilliant professor who made everybody, means the way he used to teach. He probably used to gauge that, this person is good at writing, so I need to give him more of writing assignments. This section of people is good at reading, I should give them something on reading. So he used to understand or pre-assess, like, what this person is good at, and then use economics, teach different methods to teach economics. And then probably I felt that, everybody in our class was a kind of good economist. We understood economics very well, what is GDP, how things are, how international trades, microeconomics, and everything. So I really feel that it's really like a teacher driven thing, that how you happens and what when a student can learn about. And I feel especially now you have made it more easier from a perspective, like, that you learn unbiased and you try to learn to the perfection whatever is possible. That's actually a phenomenal thing that people should think, and I believe that is really going to modify the way people think about robots teaching human. Till now we were only talking one way, like, if I create a robot and if it is bad, or how good will the control. But now you're talking about, robots can teach people, and they can teach probably better without the biases
So,
also.
now that you said this thing, I actually relate to it a lot because it is very much true. And everybody had this teachers in their lives that might have made you fall in love with a specific discipline, right? Like I had a great teacher of mathematics in high school that definitely boosted my confidence to pursue scientific studies and then in my career. No? But unfortunately, this thing can even work in the other way, right?
Yeah,
So if you have a very bad teacher, then you might ruin maybe what
absolutely.
was a natural talent, a natural
Absolutely.
potential. So really, it is critical and it's in the spirit of the whole Ducky Town project that to you know try to discover and nurture talent and provide these opportunities to the broadest possible audience by creating this whole infrastructure in a way that it's accessible. Now, it's easy to get involved. So it's easy to get involved from all perspectives. So it's easy to get it. It's easy to get started, to install what you need. It's a step by step, in the process. So I think, while I do think that we will never, or at least in the foreseeable future, we will not be able to create a robot, an autonomous system that teaches better than the best human instructor. Definitely, we can create autonomous systems that teach better than the worst instructors, so we can increase,
Yeah.
the bottom line.
Absolutely.
I think this would be a good start. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. So, coming to the next question, I've been thinking that, India is huge. India has got quite a lot of population, and if we see the future, or if we see the reports that comes from the Big Four and whatnot, 50% of education market would be India, or institutions which are in India. What is your plan for India?
Mm. So, India was not one of the countries where we were lucky enough to have, teachers migrate from the first edition. Nonetheless, it's one of our biggest markets from their different perspective. For example, it's the second country in terms of how many people are signing up to the massive online open course, definitely defining a clear interest. They're the second biggest market in terms of revenue, literally. United States of America being the first. They're the fourth biggest in terms of how much traffic we get to all our educational materials online, to our books. We have a library of books and different things available online, to our videos and webinars and things like this. But there's one very, very, very particular observation, is that all of this being true, we have only big institutions that contact us, whether it's research labs, government research labs, or universities. Okay, we do not get that, let's say, participation from the individuals. So what we believe is that we are not operating in at the best price point, maybe, or we're not operating in the best conditions. And I think this is natural because we are a startup. We started with the first objective was that to create a functional international system that worked. Okay, and this is far from being optimal. Something that works but doesn't work necessarily in the best way. So lots of efforts are being put into try to actually get our whole operation system to be more effective in India in particular, so that we can bring the price down and tap into the huge potential that India has as a country in education in particular. I will say that we are actively looking for strategic and financial partners to actually help us in this journey. We have noticed that, especially as a startup, it's non-trivial to navigate the challenges of bureaucracy and let's say without having boots on the ground, without having a physical presence. And so I think a very important step in the process of in our plans for India are to find some partner in this
Yeah.
direction. Yes.
Actually, the thing is, like, what you touched a couple of points is very good. First of all, that the things that we are talking about in terms of reaching out to India. Okay, it's good to look for local partners, and secondly, the price points. India is very price sensitive market, so yeah, absolutely, the good points there. But since you have been, it's a lot that you understand and you want to come to India. But I don't know if you have observed. Recently, there was something called new education policy in India, and from an outsider perspective, what do you think about it?
I was very excited when I read that, when I found and I read that the 2020 National Education Plan. I nearly had written all over it, like, this is Ducky Town, you know what I mean? Because I see so many points of contact. It was I think it's a very well written and ambitious and inspirational, if you want, document. And I think there are so many points of context. The first one being this idea of education having to be, of course, accessible. Okay, so a quality education that is for all, literally. So the accessibility, this is a pillar of the Ducky Town mission. Okay, we designed the platform to be a minimal autonomy platform. What's the simplest possible thing we can do, and even, of course, the less costly, that you can still do research with it, you can still do interesting things with it. It's not a toy. Okay, it's actually a little self-driving car. It's a little scientific platform. And this, I think, is perfectly aligned. Another thing that is really a key point is that of shifting from a grade-based education to a skill acquisition-based education. So the whole spirit of Ducky Town, and the ducky represents it. So we didn't really talk about this explicitly in this interview, but like, why did we choose the ducky? This symbol that is really, weird. How does a ducky have anything to do with self-driving cars and robotics and AI, right? At MIT. So we did choose rubber ducks because we wanted to break the preconceptions of robotics being something that is fast, precise, dangerous, powerful. That's when people think robotics, they think the big industrial robots maybe in the automotive industry or whatnot, right?
Yeah.
But no, the Ducky Town is designed on purpose to be the opposite. It's slow, it's imprecise, it's definitely safe. And the ducky represents all of this. It's cute, it's colorful. It's but it's as complicated as the real robot. It's real robotics, I can guarantee. Okay. So the National Education Plan contains this keyword of the education process having to be engaging. Of course, it's hands-on, but enjoyable. Okay, it's not about the pressure of the grade. You don't do a course, you don't learn so you can get your check mark on your final exams and then put it on your CV and then what? Okay, it's all about enjoying the process. That's the only way that you can actually learn. So when we run our classes in Ducky Town, we start and we say to our students, Ducky Town is a place of joy and relaxed introspection. So what we try to say is, forget about everything else. Forget about how many exams you need to do this semester, about whatever is your social pressures you're receiving. Sit down, get your robot, get your computer, and focus on what the real challenges are, which are big enough to be their own source of, which is, how do you get these things to work in the real world and why? Understanding and aligning the theory and the practice, that's the true nature of engineering, right? And how do you have? So educational experiences that are engaging, that are enjoyable, and based on experiences, so that you learn skills and not just grades. That's a very strong point of contact with the national policies. I think another great topic is that of the multidisciplinary learning. So the policy does use a word that is very strong. It says educational experiences have to be holistic. Like, they have to encompass like everything, not just the math or the physics. So of course, robotics per se is a multidisciplinary discipline. It requires competence from engineering, from computer science, from different bits and pieces that you have to put together. It's more like a system level discipline. jokingly, somebody can compare robotics to biology. You know, in biology, scientists say everything depends on everything. When everything depends on everything, it's a little bit difficult to get to figure things out. But kind of in robotics, it's like this: every detail matters. Okay, you have a screw that is not tightened as much as it should, and then the robot goes unstable and it crashes. But but maybe it was an algorithm that you didn't put in the right way, or the software architecture that you created has too much delays, and so it's like everything depends on every. It's a very multidisciplinary discipline. But on the other side, that there are other aspects, not strictly technical related, that come from the Ducky Town learning experiences, such as the need to cooperate, or anyways to have a social engagement, whether it's competition or cooperation. The whole corpus, a central, let's say, part of the Ducky Town code originally was literally written by teams of students coming together, each tackling a specific subset of the problem, and then talking and negotiating with the other teams to make sure all the interfaces work, and to create this big actual system, this code that allows the robots to do what they do. Okay, so through the learning experiences provided by Ducky Down, one can touch upon a plethora of different technological, let's say, disciplines, as well as gain a number of soft skills related to the let's say the teamwork, the cooperation, and these things necessary for being a productive, professional in today's world. And another, I think, thing that's worth mentioning is that Dakidan doesn't focus only on the theory and the actual, implementation, deployment. There's a lot of focus on the tools of the job. No, the tools make the professional, right? If you can be a medical doctor, but if you don't even know how to use the tools of the job, the machine to do the diagnostics or whatever, it's there's only so much you can do, right? Dakitan has a strong focus on the today's tools of the job to be a roboticist. So whether it can be using ROS, the robotic operating system, or maybe using Python, or maybe using Docker, or maybe using this or this other tool, there's a strong focus on that. So the multidisciplinary learning, I think, is a great point of contact with the national policies. Another one is this fact of the continuity of learning. So it's very important. Ducky Down is designed to be a platform that attracts as many people as possible, or even those, particularly those who would not otherwise be interested in robotics because of its all funny, let's say, visuals, right? But most importantly, it's designed to have scalable complexity. So with just tweaking a few knobs here and there, you can use Ducky Town for a junior high school, let's say, course, or writing papers that get published at premier robotics and AI conferences, right? So Ducky Town is designed to be from K to scientist level, from no skills to scientist level, to provide a continuous learning experience. And the national policy plan literally says this in terms of the education learning does not happen in silos. Okay, there needs to be a harmonization of the learning activities between different stages of the education system. I think that is a very important component, and Ducky Down addresses it in a very nice way. Finally, we talked about it a little bit before, but there is this notion in this more than a notion. It's this directive in the plan that says this continuous assessment of the learning outcomes, right? So we mentioned it before when you asked the question about the technology thing, but having an infrastructure that allows to scientifically gather data that drive the education process is really the next step in to get to a
Absolutely.
quality systematic education system, right?
Absolutely.
And Dakidan is definitely primed to do so.
Absolutely. No, actually, this is phenomenal. Like, we had quite a lot of people coming and talking about NEP, and you especially coming from a foreign land and talking about NEP in India, that how it is and what it is. And moreover, surprised to see that you designed a product which talks about education at all level, multidisciplinary, doing an proper, what you call evaluation, unbiased, and, a level which starts from, from zero cost cast to taking up to scientific level. It's phenomenal. And it's really happy to see that it's like what the standards of NEB are like, the international, and people are already thinking to get in that way. So it's phenomenal. Now I guess there are quite a lot of questions which have come from the audience. So what I'll do is I'll just pass on the thing back to Tariq. So Tariq, passing on to you, and probably you can take it from here.
Things like vehicle to infrastructure communication, and definitely how smart city work, how smart the cities could work, and how could they regulate traffic, how they could stop cars from crashing, how could they make easier cars to communicate with each other. Or you can start even exploring all sorts of aspects of like safety, cybersecurity. What happens if somebody maliciously wants to make cars crash or get into the hive mind of the smart city, right? These are all topics that are easily studyable in the real world with the Dakitan setup.
So bringing it closer to home, um, in the next 5 years, what real robotics could we see in our home? I know that's not what you're going to,
Mhm.
but do you have some ideas on what might come in the next
I
five
mean, there are
years?
many directions and many startups that are trying to do many different things. Definitely the old aspects of domotics and smart control of utilities, the lights or the heating and the stuff. That seems very a relatively low hanging fruit. Many people want the cooking bots because it's such a pain, right? So we'll see if they're going to be cooking well enough to actually be bought. Um, I think that in a household perspective, these are the kind of technologies that we can see. Apart from, of course, the cleaning robot, anything that has to do with the taking away repetitive tasks. Now, many people argue, but robotics and automation is something deleterious because it substitutes jobs and things. But at the same time, it provides more free time. No, we should all realize that time is the most precious of commodities. It can't even be bought, right? So having more time and putting it to use is, I think, one of the biggest uh, gifts that automation is going to bring us going forward.
Yeah, I mean, there was a movie in 2012 called Robot and Frankie. So the father is getting old. The children bring him a robot. He's absolutely mad, and then the robot starts showing its value, folding clothes, doing the garden. It's crazy, very interesting. One more thing, the learning of robotics programming, and I know you mentioned control systems, but will this turn into a big job opportunity and big employment opportunities?
Could you rephrase your question just to make sure I
Like
understand it?
today, people learn Java and Python and everything else. Should they rush in to learn robotics programming?
Well, you can. So the idea is that there's this fourth industrial revolution that is already upon us, right? So it's a fact that the education systems around the world are not keeping up with the demand of workforce from the industry, right? And this is only going to grow. It's not going away. Right? The trend is solid. So, I mean, of course, it's not going to be the panacea of all things, but definitely, if somebody is interested in robotics and automation, there's going to be plenty of jobs out there for these in these fields.
Right. Okay. Well, I mean, we are coming to time. It's 8:05, and I would like to wrap up. I'd like to also introduce Dr. Rahul Singh. Dr. Rahul Singh will be on our committee, and he is very seasoned educationalist, and he's also an educator. Rahul, do you want to just say a quick hello?
Yeah, hi. Thank you so much, Tariq. Good morning. Jacob, good morning, good afternoon. I really don't know the time difference. If you are in US, I guess it's morning. It was really exciting to listen to you, and I'm really
Thank you.
looking to the integration of what you're doing with the real world. And Tariq asked these questions about the smart city and how integration is happening. Thank you very much for the insight that you gave to us today.
Um, so, Jacopo, we are honored that you joined us, and I'm sure Shreeram told you we have had many such sessions, and today in particular, you are highlighting some of the things we have heard, but also the connectivity, between technology and life, and your own personal background, how that, Shreeram asked a very interesting question from aeronautics. How did you go here? So you explained that very well. So I think that is very useful for all of us. We can talk offline and get the deck sent out to everybody. But I would like to wrap up. Mohini, we have a few more announcements to make for the next sessions. But thank you very much, Jacopo.
Thank you for inviting me and having me here today. It was a real pleasure.
Thank you, Jacopo. And we'll just pull up the slide again. So we can go over the following sessions that we have planned. Thank you so much, Jacopo. There's a lot of interest in whatever you had to share with us today. In fact, our president from TiE Germany wants to do another session with you for all of our European chapters so they can hear.
We'll be happy to.
So we are happy to connect you. Just share my screen.
Thank you.
Mohini, am I supposed to be on cue now?
Tariq, yeah, if you like, you can go ahead and talk about the upcoming sessions.
Yes, that's the one. In fact, let me just get there. See the names. In fact, it might be that Shreeram knows those people. Just page down a bit.
Yeah, so we have upcoming sessions, two scheduled back to back. So the next one that we have is we have Mr. Shailendra Tipparaju. Shailendra Tipparaju, as I told you in the previous session, is like venture capitalist, and he has been associated to TiE for a very long time, and all his investments have been multiplied several folds. And one of his investment has grown more than 1,000% during the COVID session, and he's going to talk about what actually he sees and how that business grew more than 1,000%. That is the one session. Another session that wherein this all will be done with Tariq. Tariq will be moderating and getting in what is going on in the brain of Mr. Shailesh Tipparaju. The next session is on 4th, wherein we are going to have a discussion wherein again Tariq will be speaking to Amit Agrawal. Amit Agrawal is actually one of the smartest brains. He runs a couple of education tech companies, and he is credited to make YouTube $1 million business, $100 million business and more in India. So he was directly working towards the growth of YouTube in India. So very bright mind, running two edtech companies. What makes him to come from technology business to edtech, and how is he shaping the world? So these two sessions on 21st of January and then 4th of February. I'll request you to please book slots on your calendar. Back to Tariq.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much. I always mention this, that we could not run this program without having a committee. So there's Shreeram, and there's 5 other people. Dr. Rahul has joined us. And one of the things we want to do is, of course, we share the load, bring in names and so on, but how to make this more engaging. So it's not like it's a sleepy conversation. I think the conversation is alive, but engaging with the audience. So questions is one thing, but we're going to try and find ways in which we can somehow just increase the quality and quantity of that. So that's kind of one of the things we'll be looking at. But I'd like to wrap up and hand over back to Mohini. And please, Mohini, take care of matters.
Thank you so much, Tariq. Thank you, Shreeram, and especially Jacopo for joining us today. You shared some really valuable insights, and so wonderful to know about all of the things you're doing and the impact it's making, right from simulation of self-driving cars, making the educational platform that's easier for kids to pick up STEM subjects and make future scientists, researchers, just like yourself, but making it much easier for technology to be implemented across universities. So very excited, and we we'll be in touch with you. Thank you, everyone, for joining today. Thanks. Bye, everyone.